When we started these support groups in 2006, the women we started working with, these are the people that had lost their children. We never think that you are the one that is going to bury your child.
They were in a very desperate state, with a lot of poverty around them, with the children not going to school around them, with no essential commodities around them. Some of them didn't have homes to live in. It was a very difficult situation.
On average, you talk of 6 or more children that were now being cared by a grandmother. Coupled with that bereavement, they felt that they had no skills, they felt that they had no any potential. And so this is the situation where we started with grandmothers.
The foundation was just a few years into its work of supporting grassroots organizations at the center of the AIDS pandemic, organizations who are deeply connected to their communities. And it became undeniable that women, and often grandmothers, were the ones shouldering the burden.
I started to receive in my inbox proposals from partners and potential partners, community-based organizations, and they had phrases like parenting workshops, caring for the caregivers, parenting support groups. And we said to them, are these grandmothers that you're talking about? And they said, well, of course it's grandmothers, that's obvious. And my question was, but why aren't you saying grandmothers? And project after project, organization after organization said the same thing, which was nobody's interested in supporting grandmothers.
Spontaneously in Canada, and the way these things work, a number of grandmothers groups have sprung up in Kamloops and Nanaimo and Saskatoon and Montreal, grandmothers groups who almost intuitively understand that they want to show solidarity with the grandmothers of Africa. We should launch a campaign, Grandmothers to Grandmothers, and I hope that we will have grandmothers groups in every jurisdiction across the country, and we also expect to raise significant resources so that we can respond to the immediate needs.
Ilana and Stephen knew instantly they wanted to support the grandmothers and to give Canadians the opportunity to see firsthand how powerful African grandmothers were.
Grannies in Canada had heard that in Africa, it's the grannies that are taking care of their grandchildren. They wanted to hear the stories from the grandmothers themselves.
So in August 2006, on the eve of the International AIDS Conference, 100 African grandmothers arrived in Toronto, along with staff from the Foundation's partners.
They were able to work with the grandmothers to get birth certificates for those who didn't have them, in order to get passports, to get visas, to get on planes for the first time, to have the support that they needed to leave children behind, to make sure that the community was looking after those children in their absence. From the very get-go, we understood as Canadians that they were the ones who should drive the agenda, who must drive the agenda.
I want, obviously, to welcome all of you here with all my heart, all of the magnificent grandmothers from Africa, from whom I personally have learned so much.
As world leaders were preparing to discuss the AIDS crisis, grandmothers made it clear they too were experts.
We want to be able to emerge on Sunday morning with a kind of statement that comes from the conference, which will give the world and the International AIDS Conference next week a sense of what was accomplished here, so that your words, your views, your thoughts, your instincts, your programs, your assertion of needs and rights, the African Granny's agenda, having been embraced by Canada, will be then put to the world.
In workshops organized and led by the grandmothers themselves, the African women shared the grief and pain of burying their own children, the hardship of not having the resources to feed and clothe and send their grandchildren to school, and the isolation and stigma of HIV and AIDS.
some of us, especially in Africa, have lost people in their families, and some of us are staying with children because their parents have died. Now what we're going to do today is just to discuss how we managed to help those children through that painful moment of grieving and mourning. We were told before we came to Canada that we were given topics because each organization would choose a topic to talk about. From that, we're able to learn of what was happening in other countries and also talk about what was happening in your country. That on its own helped us a lot, and we really treasured that.
They are saying that we have to care for the orphans. No matter what condition we have to care for the orphans. And then after that, we should know that these orphans are the future of tomorrow.
Even though parts of it were so painfully sad, kept saying that, look at these remarkable women. And they all made it very clear that they were not seeking pity. And I think that really struck me, these resilient women who were finding ways to speak out and say, let's work together. We can't do this alone.
Ngajabula kakhulu ukuqala kwami. Ngangimangala ukuthi ngawuhamba ngani ukuya eKhanada. Nabathi ngawugibela indiza ngathi oh my God ngaba ngiusheka le. Etulo. Aha sahamba. Kumgcoka manje kakhulu lokuthi sihlangane sibogogo sinetinkinga emakhaya. Kufaneleke lo munye utawukhuluma ukhande ethi siyakwelapha kulo inkinga lokubhekene nayo.
The grandmothers were coming together and looking after each other, hearing each other's stories and having that strength and companionship of each other. We cried, we laughed, we sang, and it was just an amazing time.
On the streets of downtown Toronto, the grandmothers marched. In a wave of songs and chants, they let world leaders know that grandmothers would no longer be invisible in the fight against AIDS.
That was amazing. So many people came, and all the African grandmothers, of course, they know how to sing and dance. There was not despair there. There was hope, and there was such feeling of love towards each other and caring.
The gathering culminated in a statement written by the grandmothers and delivered to the world.
I got the chance to be with Mama Joyce, who is really a remarkable woman.
Each of our stories is different. Each of our experiences is unique. And yet we are here as representatives of countless women who share in our tragedy. For every grandmother here today, there are 50, 60, 70,000 at home.
And when we were asked to do the Toronto statement, she and I spent a considerable amount of time together reading it, reviewing it, going over it, and then to be placed at the mic to do it together was remarkable.
We are strong, we are determined, we are resourceful, we are creative, we are resilient, and we have the wisdom that comes with age and experience.
It was exciting, enriching, and very emotional, and said to the world, here we are, and we're going to work on this together. We have a cause, and it's a valuable one.
May this be the dawn of the grandmothers movement.
The first big challenge was to organize them into groups and get their confidence that it's possible they can do something in their lives.
They were not talking about what had happened to their children. Then when they started to trust us, it was then when they started opening up. We started doing health education about HIV and AIDS and what had killed their children. We didn't have funding. We had nothing. Even for the things we thought we could do, it was sort of impossible how to start those projects till we started getting funding from Canada.
Canadian grandmothers had heard the call and were stepping up. Just 2 years into the campaign, they had already raised $2 million.
I decided I could make purses. I've always been a sewer and so forth. I'm not particularly good at it, and some of the first purses were awful. But I realized very quickly that women were really interested. They would buy the purses just to support the cause.
With our humble beginnings in Regina, probably about half of the core group, the founding group, were not grandmothers. We were just smitten with the movement and what was happening. We didn't feel like we needed to be a grandmother to join. We've done farmers markets, we've done music evenings, we've done African jewelry sales. We've tried so many things and are always game to try something else.
We've done a number of fundraisers, and a couple of them have been fashion shows, including way up in their 80s grannies, part of it. And, you know, the whooping and the hollering and the fun that was had during those events really made all the work and the effort worthwhile. And we're very successful.
With new funds and a deep desire to demonstrate solidarity through action, the foundation hosted a second gathering, this time on African soil. 500 grandmothers from 14 countries reconvened in Swaziland, now called Eswatini.
It is a great honor and privilege to welcome you to the beautiful Kingdom of Swaziland to this historic event for the first International Grandmothers Gathering in Africa.
Ngifuna kufunza le lapho sasiya manje ngafunza kakhulu nje ngale HIV.
They were still grappling with poverty and loss and a lack of health care and education for their families. But the grandmothers were also starting to talk about more than basic needs. This time, their agenda included preventing gender-based violence and land grabbing, securing pensions, and keeping children in school.
You need other people to work with you. You need other people because, like, what my organization is doing best, that organization can do well.
In a final statement, they called on their governments for more social and legal protections.
And today, on behalf of the Stephen Lewis Foundation and the thousands of Canadian grandmothers, we pledge to you that we will be with you every step of the way until every one of those rights is realized.
One went to Swaziland. I enjoyed, I ran, I exchanged ideas with Canadian grandmothers. My fellow grandmothers from Africa, they just wanted to share. So they could share their experience, how they cope with the HIV and AIDS. The grandmothers from Swaziland were saying, Okubonso. That they told us it means you unite and then you start that you can do great things. Okubonso.
You unite, you start, you can do great things. That was exactly the message when, in 2013, 5 African grandmothers bravely took the stage at a People's Tribunal in Vancouver. It was time to shine a public light on the denial of African grandmothers' human rights and to issue a call to action.
At the root of all of this lies gender inequality. Until we break the gender inequality, we will never break the pandemic. And the grandmothers of Africa are the centerpiece of this reality.
In a packed Vancouver concert hall, before a rapt audience and 4 esteemed judges, they testified to their rights violations related to HIV and AIDS.
Asebedo ranyisi ni gima ji wacho ter ok en adiera. Nikech kata ok oteri nyithindi ok nyal tho. An ok otera to nyithinda ok otho kendo gi ngima. Amor kendo jogweng' wuoro.
I'm a leader in my community. I have learned so much about how to counsel and mobilize other grandmothers, encouraging them to have hope, understanding their rights, their healthcare entitlements, and access government programs. I know the work is not finished yet, and that there is more to be done.
Energized by the tribunal, the campaign continued to grow. Grandmothers were claiming rights. They were becoming leaders in their own communities. They needed access to health systems, legal systems, and financial systems. And they needed to confront their own governments with their demands. They knew they were stronger in numbers. So, nation by nation, they continued to gather. Each time, they were joined by a small contingent of international grandmothers who were there ready to listen, to learn, and to lend their support.
Angisitile kakhulu ngayekela kwesaba ngasukuma ngasebenda lobe kungibulala kakhulu ukugula. Kodwa ke ukuthi lagule nawo siwedwa na uhamba esibhedlela ufika ukhanza labanye sikhulumisana bakunika ithemba hayi sengibuyele ekhaya ngifile.
I managed to send about 4 grandmothers from my community. When they came back from that sessions of grandmothers, they said, no, we are not looking back. We are members of TAC forever and we are happy to serve our community.
It was an expression of a community that I had never seen before. It was celebrating their triumphs of what they had done. Also, it was expressing the sorrow of the loss, the grief, the fear of stigma. I mean, there was a lot that was expressed, and the deep listening and respect that each woman got when she spoke, that really culturally astounded me. Nobody was interrupted.
Kwa sababu kila mtu alikuwa anatoka pale anajieleza alikotoka. Tulifurahia kwa nyimbo za kila mahali, kila watu waliimba nyimbo za kwao, kila grupu waliimba nyimbo za kwao, tuintroduce kila mtu watu tofauti tofauti. Sasa ni vizuri kusikia historia ya mtu tofauti tofauti kwa sababu na wewe unapanda kiakili kwamba ala, kumbe wenzangu wanafanya hivi na mimi nikafanya hivi. Alafu kingine nilipochaguliwa kuwa kiongozi nilifurahi sana na naitumia vizuri hiyo nafasi yangu kuhamasisha wabibi wengine.
Following the gathering in Durban, grandmothers had a message for the government of South Africa.
They discussed this as grannies and said, nothing for us without us. I will say to grandmother, stay on. Stay on. Nothing for you without you.
Now your voices will be heard by politicians.
After every gathering, grandmothers presented a statement outlining their demands, calling on government, the private sector, civil society, and members of the international community to support their vision for the future.
The statement says healthcare services must be made available. I want to point out that is not a request, that is your human right.
In Arusha, Tanzania, The statement was delivered directly to the office of the regional commissioner. It said, "Protect us, listen to us, and give us opportunities." We're not asking for favors. We are speaking out for our human rights and well-being. Grandmothers are the reflection of our nations. When we are well taken care of, the entire society will flourish.
This is not politics, this is prosperity of women, prosperity of grandmothers, prosperity of children who have been deprived of the lives of their own parents. These are very, really important, particularly for a large country like Tanzania.
There was a real sense, I would say, that the gathering had achieved something, that it had put the struggle of the grandmothers in the forefront of political discussion then. So they were just hoping that, finally, that their voices would be heard and would be amplified as a result of this gathering and the march. That is an experience that I shall remember for the rest of my life.
Wabibi ni nguzo ya taifa letu, lakini Tanzania imeendelea kujimili kwa sababu sisi Wabibi tumeweka ujimili mkubwa.
Grandmothers would no longer sit on the sidelines while those in positions of power made decisions about their lives. They deserved and demanded a seat at the table, and there was no looking back.
I realized very quickly that this group could also become a wonderful support group. And certainly as we've aged, that has become even more important.
The power of our group has always been the ability to come together, form relationships, and so it's been so positive. Many of us have made lifelong friends.
The strength that we get from each other when we face personal hardships or personal tragedies. There is this group of grandmothers around us that support us, but in the process, we are working with a project that is way beyond us.
To be able to facilitate the well-being of these communities is a very worthwhile project, and we receive from it.
Of course, the grandmothers from Canada are different. They live very comfortable life. They supported us. They've seen what we've gone through, and they cry with us because of the challenges that we live in Africa. But it's very important that we got to know each other, learn from one another, and get to know that the challenges we face are being the same challenges others face.
Solidarity was like something growing from inside the grandmothers. And then when they get even the support, they now know how to move ahead.
They are so powerful, and we don't actually need to be their voice. We just need to let them speak for themselves, because when they do, it moves mountains, and it's undeniable.
It's really that we respect these women and we honor them for what they're doing.
5 years to come, you will see a very, very changed continent. They'll be saying one word: nothing about us without us.
A grandmother is a person who carries the heart of the child. They should never think about the wrinkles on their faces. Their hearts are just 12 years old.
I was raised up by a grandmother, so I see a big role. I see a father in that grandmother. I see a mother. I see a mentor. I see a teacher. She is so many persons in one person.
Mufyashi usova ma problems yabali abaleyisa kunuma abaana abanono then nakulu mufyashi uwafu ekyalo kyonse okulanga emisango eyisuma bakutte abaana abanono baleesenda mu bali muliiwe.
When I say grandmother to a person, it's because I feel that love, unconditional love, support, and this person has carried so much in her life.
For me, a grandmother is like this huge tree. So she's like an overarching shade of a family.
To me, I always sort of think of as the family umbrella. It gathers everybody in and keeps an eye out for the whole family.
I'm there sort of as the backstop, the emotional backstop. And of course, doing things with the grandchildren that are special.
And the other day, one of them was looking at my hand with, it's kind of wrinkled veins and saying, "Gee, you're getting old, Hannah." I said, I know I'm getting old. I know. But then one of them said, "But you're wise. You are wise." And I thought, what am I going to ask for?
The unsung hero who does everything and sometimes is not appreciated. But now we are making sure that our voices are heard.
It means love. To me, it's that simple. Whether it's for our own grandchildren, from other children, for the grandmothers in Africa and their grandchildren that they're raising, it just means love.